We're going to finish the primary or secondary source worksheet. In the last video, we went over 1 through 7 and we talked about primary and secondary sources again. Today, we're going to finish the rest of the worksheet, go 8 through 20. One thing that I did change is I added to number 6. The more I thought about it, the more I could see either one of those being correct, secondary or primary, because I guess it depends on the type of news report. If somebody is there it could be maybe they are interviewing somebody in that news report. I don't know, it doesn't say. So my initial thought is secondary, but I can understand primary too. So either one of those I would accept as correct. So let's keep going. Let's talk real quick again. Primary source is from the event or the time period or the person or whatever. Secondary source is after the fact, or somebody had to research to give you this information. So it's from a person not directly involved in the event, information from somewhere else, all that good stuff. If somebody says that it was probably like this, then that's secondary. Number 8, a YouTube video describing how the pyramids were built. So the pyramids in ancient Egypt, I'm assuming, is what this is talking about. YouTube didn't exist then. Anybody who was around during ancient Egyptian times was no more when YouTube first began, even. So that has to be a secondary source. Number 9, an interview with Alexander Graham Bell about how he invented the telephone. It's an interview with the person who invented the telephone talking about how he invented the telephone. So that's a primary source. Number 10, a radio broadcast from the day the Soviet Union launched Sputnik. So it's a radio broadcast from that day. That's going to be a primary source. Number 11, an autobiography about the 40th president, Ronald Reagan. So an autobiography is a story about somebody written by that person, by themselves. So it's a story about Ronald Reagan, written by Ronald Reagan. That's going to be a primary source. Number 12, a book describing Christopher Columbus sailing to America. That it doesn't say it's by Christopher Columbus, so that is going to be a secondary source. Usually if it's about something, if it is describing something, it's going to be a secondary source. Unless it says it's by that person, of course. Number 13, a famous artist's painting of what cowboy life was probably like. This is a tricky one. The painting itself is a primary source because it is from that famous artist, but the story behind that painting is a secondary source because it's what cowboy life was probably like. So that is a tricky one. So I would say that could be either one, primary or secondary. Well, we'll say primary and secondary on that one. You shouldn't have any. I'm not going to test you on stuff like that. That's confusing. Don't worry about it. Number 14, a journal by a cowboy about the cattle drives from Texas to Kansas. So a journal, it's like a diary. It's just stuff that he's written down about the things that he had been doing. So that is a primary source. Number 15, the U.S. Constitution. Any kind of government document is a primary source, always, even if it's a copy. Number 16, a journal written by Lewis about his exploration of the Louisiana Purchase. That is going to be a primary source again. A journal, a diary, things like that, always primary. Number 17, a history book describing Lewis and Clark's exploration of the Louisiana Purchase. The history book itself is going to be secondary because somebody had to research Lewis and Clark's exploration before they could actually write about it. So that is secondary. Number 18, a classmate giving a report about World War II. Your classmates were not around during World War II, so they had to research that before they could talk about it. That's going to be secondary. Usually any kind of report is going to be a secondary source. Number 19, a letter from a soldier who fought in World War II describing World War II. Well, if this person was fighting in World War II and he wrote about World War II, he experienced it, that's a primary source. And 20, a Vietnam veteran talking about the war in Vietnam. So a veteran, he fought in the army or she, so that is going, they know what happened in Vietnam. So that is going, and they're talking about Vietnam. That's a primary source. All right. So that is 8 through 20 on this worksheet. That's the rest of it. So if you have any questions, let me know. Remember, a primary source is from that event or time period, secondary sources after the fact. Somebody had to research it to tell about whatever it is they're talking about. So if you have any questions, let me know. We'll work on this. We will use these all throughout this year. So by the time you leave me, you will definitely know the difference between primary and secondary sources. Hope to see you guys soon.